The dirt-caked window of Peterson's Mercantile couldn't hide the spectacle unfolding inside, where Daisy Ellis stood frozen beside a bolt of faded calico, the weight of every mocking stare pressing down on her threadbare dress like the unforgiving Wyoming sun. Salt Lake City, Utah Territory, 1876. Daisy had known this trip was a risk. The 25 miles from her family's struggling homestead to Salt Lake City represented the farthest she'd traveled in years, but necessity had driven her here. The supplies they needed couldn't wait another month, not with winter approaching and her father's health failing. So she donned her best dress, a 5-year-old garment that had been mended more times than she cared to count, and made the journey. Now, standing amid the fine ladies of Salt Lake City with their fashionable bustles and pristine gloves, she wished she'd stayed home. "Is that a dress or a patchwork quilt?" whispered Mrs. Hoffman, the banker's wife, loudly enough for everyone to hear. Her companions tittered behind lace handkerchiefs. "I dare say it's seen more sunsets than that old clock tower," added Mrs. Porter, gesturing to Daisy's faded blue cotton dress with its careful mending along the seams. Daisy clutched her worn leather purse tighter, focusing on the mental list of supplies: seeds for spring planting, coffee, sugar, ammunition for hunting, medicine for father. Each item represented hours of work: eggs she'd collected, butter she'd churned, quilts she'd sewn by candlelight. Every penny had been earned through labor that would make these pampered women faint. She reached for a bolt of sturdy cotton, trying to ignore the stares when Mrs. Hoffman gasped dramatically. "She isn't actually considering that fabric, is she, for a new dress?" "Darling, you'd be better served by a potato sack. At least it would be a novelty." The laughter that followed burned Daisy's cheeks and made her fingers tremble. 22 years old, and she felt like a schoolgirl again, being taunted for her hand-me-downs. She considered abandoning her shopping, returning to the wagon, and heading home without the supplies they desperately needed. Pride wasn't worth more than survival. "I'd like 3 yards of this, please," she said to the shopkeeper, her voice quiet but steady. Before the man could respond, the bell above the door jingled and the shop fell silent. Daisy didn't turn, focusing instead on counting out the coins she'd brought. She had calculated the cost down to the penny and couldn't afford any mistakes. "Ladies," came a deep voice from behind her. "Beautiful day to be spending money, isn't it?" The titters and whispers transformed instantly into welcoming greetings and fluttered eyelashes. Daisy still didn't look up, not wanting to draw any more attention to herself. "Mr. Russell, how fortunate to see you," gushed Mrs. Hoffman. "We were just discussing the season's new fabrics. What brings you to town today?" "Supplies, same as everyone," the man replied, and Daisy heard his boots cross the wooden floor toward the counter where she stood. "Excuse me, miss, don't mean to rush you." Daisy finally looked up and nearly gasped. She'd heard of Noah Russell, of course. Everyone within 100 miles knew of the Rocking R Ranch and its owner, the most successful cattle operation in the territory, they said. The man himself stood taller than she'd expected, broad-shouldered in a clean black coat despite the trail dust on his boots. His face was weathered from sun and wind, but his eyes were kind beneath the brim of his hat. She guessed him to be in his early 30s. "I'm nearly finished," she managed, turning back to the shopkeeper. 3 yards of this cotton and the items on this list, please." As the shopkeeper began gathering her supplies, Mrs. Porter sidled closer to Noah Russell. "We were just remarking on the interesting fashion choices of our country visitors," she said with a meaningful glance toward Daisy. "So quaint, don't you think?" Noah Russell looked at Daisy for a long moment, his expression unreadable. She braced herself for more humiliation. Men like him didn't associate with dirt farmers' daughters in patched dresses. "Actually," he said, his voice carrying through the now silent store, "I think she's the finest woman in here." The shocked gasps were audible. Daisy's head snapped up, certain she'd misheard. "I beg your pardon, Mrs." Hoffman sputtered. Noah Russell removed his hat, revealing dark hair in need of a trim. "I said she's the finest woman here. That dress has seen honest work, which is more than I can say for some of the fancy garments I see." His eyes met Daisy's, and there was something in them respect, perhaps that made her stand a little straighter. A woman who works hard and makes do with what she has is worth 10 of those who judge by appearances. Mrs. Hoffman's face turned an unflattering shade of crimson. Well, I never know, madam, I expect you never have, Noah interrupted politely. Never had to make something last or decide between new fabric and food for your table. He turned back to Daisy. Don't mind them, miss. Some folks mistake costly for valuable. The silence in the store was deafening. Daisy hardly knew what to say, but she managed a quiet thank you before turning back to collect her purchases. As she paid for her goods, she was acutely aware of Noah Russell standing nearby, waiting his turn. The society women had moved to the far side of the store, whispering furiously among themselves. Miss, the shopkeeper handed her the wrapped packages. Will you be needing help carrying these to your wagon? Before Daisy could respond, Noah stepped forward. I'd be happy to assist if the lady permits. Daisy hesitated. She wasn't accustomed to accepting help, especially from strangers, particularly not wealthy strangers who had just defended her honor in front of the town's most influential women. That's very kind, but I can manage, she said, gathering the packages into her arms. Noah nodded, respecting her decision. At least allow me to get the door for you. As they moved toward the exit, Mrs. Hoffman made one last attempt to save face. Mr. Russell, we're having a small gathering this evening at our home. Perhaps you'd care to join us. The mayor will be there and Judge Wilson. Noah paused with his hand on the door. Thank you for the invitation, Mrs. Hoffman, but I have business to attend to. He tipped his hat politely and held the door open for Daisy. Outside in the bright sunshine, Daisy took a deep breath of fresh air, feeling as though she'd escaped from a cage. Her wagon was hitched at the end of the street, and she started toward it with her packages. Miss. Noah Russell had followed her out. I meant what I said in there, no disrespect intended. Daisy stopped and turned to face him. No disrespect taken, Mr. Russell, though I can't imagine what prompted such gallantry toward a stranger. A smile creased his tanned face. My mother raised me to recognize quality when I see it, and to call out pettiness when I hear it. He gestured to her packages. You sure I can't help you with those? My horse is right here, and I'd be happy to walk with you to your wagon. Something about his straightforward manner put her at ease. All right then, thank you. As they walked down the dusty street, Daisy was conscious of curious glances from townsfolk. Noah Russell wasn't just wealthy, he was also unmarried, which made him the subject of considerable interest among families with eligible daughters. I gather you're not from Salt Lake City, he asked, carrying the heavier of her parcels. No. Our homestead's northeast of here in the shadow of the Uinta Mountains. Ellis Farm, recognition flickered in his eyes. Thomas Ellis's place with the creek running through it. Yes, you know it. Passed by it a few times, moving cattle to the railhead. Good water there. He glanced at her. You're Thomas's daughter, then? I am, Daisy Ellis. She found herself curious about his knowledge of their small farm. Most people don't know our place. I make it my business to know the territory. Your father has that orchard started, doesn't he? Saw some young apple trees last time I rode through. Yes, though they're not bearing much yet. She was surprised by his observation. Father believes they'll do well in that soil. They reached her wagon, a weathered but sturdy vehicle with a team of 2 reliable draft horses. Noah placed her packages carefully in the back. Miss Ellis, he said, stepping back as she climbed onto the seat, I wonder if I might call on you sometime. I've been thinking about planting some fruit trees myself, and I'd value your father's advice. Daisy was momentarily speechless. Men like Noah Russell didn't call on women like her, no matter what gallant things they might say in mercantile stores. I'm not sure my father is well enough for visitors, she said honestly. He's been ill this past winter. Concern crossed Noah's face. I'm sorry to hear that. Is there anything you need? A doctor, perhaps? Thank you, but we're managing. Pride kept her from admitting just how difficult things had been, and we do have medicine now. She gestured to her purchases. Noah nodded, respecting her boundaries. Well, the offer stands. If you need anything, the Rocking R is open to you and your father. He stepped back from the wagon. Safe travels, Miss Ellis. "Thank you, Mr. Russell, for everything." She picked up the reins and clicked to her horses, keenly aware of his gaze following her as she drove away. The journey home gave Daisy ample time to think. The incident at the mercantile replayed in her mind, along with Noah Russell's unexpected defense and even more unexpected request to call on her. By the time she reached the familiar lane leading to their small farmhouse, she had convinced herself it had been nothing more than a kind gesture from a man with good manners. The Ellis farm sat in a gentle valley, bordered by a creek on one side and rising foothills on the other. The modest house and barn had been built by her father's own hands when he'd claimed the land 15 years ago, after her mother died. The apple orchard, 20 young trees in neat rows, represented Thomas Ellis's hope for the future, a crop that might someday bring more security than their current subsistence farming. As Daisy drove the wagon into the yard, her father appeared in the doorway of the house, leaning heavily on a cane. At 53, illness had aged him beyond his years, his once powerful frame now gaunt and stooped. "You're back earlier than I expected," he called, making his way slowly down the steps. The shopping went quickly. Daisy set the brake and jumped down from the wagon seat. "How are you feeling today?" "Better than yesterday." He smiled tiredly. "Any news from town?" Daisy busied herself with unhitching the horses, unsure how much to tell him about the day's events. Her father had enough worries without adding social humiliation to them. "The usual gossip," she said lightly. "Oh, and I met Noah Russell from the Rocking R Ranch." Her father's eyebrows rose. "Did you now? What business did he have with you?" "None, really. He was in the mercantile when I was shopping. Seems to know of our place, mentioned the orchard, in fact." Thomas nodded slowly. "The Rocking R borders our land to the north, though it's miles away. Russell's a good man from what I hear, fair in his dealings." He coughed, a rattling sound that worried Daisy. "Did you get the medicine?" "Yes, and everything else on the list." She took his arm, guiding him back toward the house. "Let's get you inside, and I'll make some tea with the new leaves I bought. Then you can take your medicine." That evening, after her father had gone to bed, Daisy sat by the fire darning socks. The events of the day kept intruding on her thoughts. Noah Russell's words echoed in her mind. "She's the finest woman here." No man had ever spoken about her that way, certainly not one of his standing. It puzzled her. She glanced down at her worn dress, the same one that had drawn such mockery in town, and wondered what he had seen that the society ladies had missed. Not beauty, surely. Daisy had no illusions about her appearance. Years of hard work had left her hands calloused and her skin tanned by the sun, a far cry from the porcelain complexions valued by society. Her honey-brown hair was practical rather than fashionable, usually braided and pinned up out of her way. No, Noah Russell couldn't have been admiring her appearance. Perhaps it was simply his nature to defend those being mistreated. A kind gesture, nothing more. With that reasonable conclusion, Daisy put the matter from her mind and focused on the tasks ahead. Tomorrow would bring chores, as always. The cows needed milking, eggs needed collecting, and the garden required attention before the first frost. Noah Russell and his unexpected gallantry had no place in her practical world. 3 days later, Daisy was kneeling in the kitchen garden, harvesting the last of the season's carrots, when she heard the distinctive sound of hoofbeats approaching. Visitors were rare at the Ellis farm, especially since her father's illness had curtailed his participation in community affairs. Shading her eyes against the afternoon sun, she watched a rider come into view on the winding dirt road that led to their property. As he drew closer, her heart skipped a beat in recognition. Even at a distance, Noah Russell cut an impressive figure on horseback, his posture straight and confident. Daisy stood quickly, brushing soil from her apron and pushing loose strands of hair back from her face. She was suddenly, uncomfortably aware of her appearance, another old dress, muddy boots, and hands stained from garden work. Noah reached the yard and dismounted in one fluid motion, leading his horse, a magnificent chestnut stallion, toward where she stood. "Miss Ellis," he greeted her, removing his hat. "I hope I'm not intruding." "Mr. Russell," she nodded, trying to maintain her composure. "This is unexpected." A slight smile curved his mouth. I mentioned I might call. Is your father available? I brought something that might help with his cough. He reached into his saddlebag and produced a small glass bottle. That's very thoughtful, Daisy said, genuinely touched by the gesture. He's resting now, but I can wake him. No need to disturb him. Another time will do. Noah glanced around the neat farmyard, taking in the well-kept garden, the modest house with smoke curling from its chimney, the small barn, and the young orchard beyond. You've made a good place here. My father has worked hard for it. Daisy hesitated, then added, Would you care for some coffee? It seems wrong to send you back without at least offering refreshment. Noah's expression brightened. I'd appreciate that, thank you. Daisy led him to the house, suddenly self-conscious about their humble home. The main room served as kitchen, dining area, and sitting room combined, with two small bedrooms off to one side. Everything was clean and orderly, but plainly furnished with pieces Thomas had made himself or items brought from their previous home back east. She busied herself at the stove, stoking the fire and setting a pot of water to boil, while Noah stood respectfully near the door, hat in hand. Please sit down, she offered, gesturing to the table. I'm afraid we don't stand on ceremony here. Ceremony's overrated, he replied, taking a seat at the worn wooden table. His presence seemed to fill the small room, making it feel both smaller and somehow more important than it had before. As she prepared the coffee, Daisy was acutely aware of his gaze. You said you've passed our farm before, she said to break the silence. Do you move your cattle through this area often? Once or twice a year, we drive them to the railroad at Echo for shipping east. He placed the medicine bottle on the table. This is from my ranch manager's wife. Willow bark and honey with a few other herbs. She's part Shoshone, learned healing from her grandmother. It's helped my men through many a winter illness. Daisy brought 2 cups of coffee to the table and sat across from him. Thank you, we'll try anything that might help at this point. She hesitated, then asked directly, Mr. Russell, why are you really here? He looked somewhat taken aback by her directness. I told you I wanted to bring the medicine and perhaps talk to your father about his orchard. That's very kind, but there are many orchards closer to your ranch with more experienced growers than my father. Daisy met his gaze steadily. And I can't help but think you must have more important matters to attend to than delivering medicine to strangers. Noah took a sip of his coffee before answering. You're right, of course. Direct questions deserve direct answers. He set his cup down carefully. The truth is, Miss Ellis, I've been thinking about what happened in town. Those women had no right to treat you that way. It's hardly the first time I've encountered such attitudes, Daisy said, trying to dismiss it. And while your intervention was appreciated, it wasn't necessary. Maybe not necessary for you, you seem more than capable of handling yourself, but perhaps it was necessary for me. He leaned forward slightly. I've spent 10 years building the rocking R from nothing. I know what it is to work until your hands bleed and your back feels broken. To choose between necessities because you can't afford both. Daisy was surprised by this admission. I thought the rocking R was well established. Now it is. But when I came west after the war, I had nothing but the clothes on my back and what I'd learned working on my uncle's farm in Missouri. His expression grew distant. I started as a ranch hand, saved every penny, bought my first few head of cattle, and built from there. Nothing was given to me. This revelation changed her perception of him. Yet now you're among the territory's wealthiest ranchers. I've been fortunate, he acknowledged. But I haven't forgotten what it was like at the beginning. When I saw those women mocking your dress, a garment that's seen honest work, it reminded me of people who judged me when I was struggling. He met her eyes directly. I didn't speak up just for your sake, Miss Ellis. I spoke up because someone should. Daisy found herself touched by his honesty. Well, whatever your reasons, I appreciate it. She offered a small smile, and the coffee's getting cold. Noah smiled back and took another drink. Excellent coffee, by the way, better than what my cook manages, and he's paid handsomely. They sat in companionable silence for a moment before a weak voice called from the bedroom. Daisy, is someone here? Daisy rose immediately. My father's awake. Would you like to meet him? I'd be honored. She led Noah to her father's bedroom where Thomas Ellis sat propped up against his pillows, his face pale but alert. "Father, this is Mr. Noah Russell from the Rocking R Ranch. Mr. Russell, my father, Thomas Ellis." Thomas raised his eyebrows in surprise but extended a thin hand. "Mr. Russell, this is unexpected. Mr. Ellis," Noah shook his hand firmly. "I've admired your place when passing through, particularly your orchard. It's well situated." Thomas brightened visibly at the mention of his prized project. "It's still young, but I have high hopes. The soil drains well, and that eastern slope gives good morning sun without the harsh afternoon heat." "Exactly what I noticed," Noah agreed. "I've been considering adding an orchard to my own property and would value your thoughts." For the next half hour, Daisy watched in amazement as her father engaged in the most animated conversation she'd seen from him in months. Noah asked thoughtful questions about rootstock, grafting techniques, and soil preparation, jotting occasional notes in a small book he carried. By the time the conversation wound down, Thomas was visibly tiring, though his eyes remained bright with the pleasure of sharing his knowledge. "I should let you rest," Noah said, noticing the older man's fatigue, "but I'd like to continue this conversation another time if you're willing." "I'd like that," Thomas replied. "Not many folks around here interested in pomology." "I brought something for your cough," Noah added, and Daisy fetched the bottle from the kitchen. "My ranch manager's wife made it. 2 spoonfuls morning and night," she says. Thomas accepted the gift with genuine gratitude. "Very kind of you, Mr. Russell." After saying goodbye to Thomas, Daisy walked Noah back outside to his horse. The afternoon sun was beginning to lower, casting long shadows across the farmyard. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I haven't seen my father so animated in months. His illness has been difficult." Noah nodded understanding. "Isolation makes everything harder." He hesitated, then added, "Miss Ellis, I'd like to call again if that's acceptable. Perhaps this weekend. I could bring some books on fruit cultivation I've collected." Daisy found herself wanting to say yes, even as caution told her to maintain her distance. Men of Noah Russell's standing didn't typically pursue friendships with homesteaders' daughters without reason. "My father would enjoy that," she said carefully, "and you," his gaze was direct. "Would you find my company objectionable?" "No," she admitted. "I wouldn't find it objectionable at all." A smile warmed his features. "Saturday, then. I could arrive around midday. Saturday would be fine." She watched as he mounted his horse with the easy grace of a man who'd spent most of his life in the saddle. "Until then, Miss Ellis." He tipped his hat and turned his horse toward the road. Daisy stood watching until he disappeared around the bend, wondering what exactly had just happened, and why the prospect of Saturday suddenly made her heart beat faster than it had any right to. That night, after her father had taken the herbal remedy and fallen into the most peaceful sleep he'd had in weeks, Daisy sat by the fire with her mending, thoughts drifting to Noah Russell. His interest in their small farm puzzled her. While his story of building his ranch from nothing explained some of his empathy, it didn't account for his continued attention. Perhaps it was simple neighborliness, though their properties could hardly be called adjacent. Or maybe he genuinely was interested in orcharding. Whatever his reasons, she found herself looking forward to his return with an anticipation that both excited and alarmed her. Saturday dawned clear and cool, a perfect autumn day. Daisy rose earlier than usual, determined to complete her chores with time to spare. She milked the cows, collected eggs, kneaded dough for bread, and swept the house from top to bottom. By mid-morning, she had even found time to pick the last of the fall apples from their older trees for a pie. Her father noticed her unusual energy. "The house hasn't been this clean since spring," he commented with a knowing smile. "One might think we're expecting important company." Daisy felt her cheeks warm. "Mr. Russell was kind enough to bring your medicine. The least we can do is offer him a decent meal in return." Thomas's eyes twinkled. Of course, simple hospitality. Despite her protests, Daisy did take extra care with her appearance, washing her hair and pinning it more carefully than usual. She chose her Sunday dress still modest and well-worn, but the best she owned, and even added a touch of her mother's old rosewater behind her ears. Noah arrived promptly at midday, this time in a small wagon rather than on horseback. Daisy met him in the yard, trying to ignore the flutter in her stomach at the sight of him in a clean white shirt and dark vest. "Miss Ellis," he greeted her with a warm smile, "you're looking well today." "Thank you, Mr. Russell, as are you," she nodded toward his wagon. "That seems like more than just a few books." "I may have brought a few other things," he admitted, reaching into the back of the wagon. "Some preserves my housekeeper put up, a new medical journal with an article on respiratory ailments," and he lifted a wooden crate carefully. "Something I thought might interest your father." Daisy's curiosity was piqued. "What is it?" "A sapling, Baldwin apple. They're doing well in similar climates, and I thought he might like to add it to his orchard." The thoughtfulness of the gift touched her deeply. "He'll be delighted, truly." Noah carried the sapling and a leather satchel filled with books as they walked to the house. Thomas was waiting in his chair by the window, looking stronger than he had in days. "Mr. Russell," he called. "Right on time, Mr. Ellis. Good to see you sitting up." Noah carefully placed the crate near the door. "I've brought something for your orchard if you'd care to advise me on where it might best be planted." Thomas's face lit up at the sight of the sapling. "A Baldwin, I've been wanting to try one of those." He pushed himself up with his cane. "Let's take a look at it in the light." For the next hour, the three of them sat at the kitchen table while Thomas examined the sapling and discussed potential planting locations. Noah had brought detailed maps of his ranch and sketched possible orchard sites based on Thomas's advice. Daisy served fresh bread, butter, and cold venison from yesterday's cooking, watching with pleasure as her father engaged in the technical discussion. After the meal, Noah suggested they plant the sapling while the weather held. "If you'll direct us, Mr. Ellis, Miss Ellis and I can do the physical work." Thomas agreed eagerly, and they moved to the orchard. Daisy fetched the shovel while Noah carried the sapling, and her father supervised from a nearby stump, calling out instructions for the proper depth and spacing. As Daisy dug the hole, she was surprised when Noah removed his vest and rolled up his sleeves to help. Most wealthy ranchers she knew would have considered such labor beneath them. "You don't have to," she began. "I want to," he said simply, taking the shovel to widen the hole. "Been a while since I've had dirt under my fingernails, miss it sometimes." They worked together companionably, preparing the soil, gently placing the young tree and tamping the earth around it. Thomas watched with evident satisfaction. "That's a fine addition," he said when they'd finished. "With proper care, it should start bearing in 3 or 4 years." "I'll look forward to sampling the first fruits," Noah replied, wiping his hands on a handkerchief, "though I expect I'll need guidance along the way." "Happy to provide it," Thomas assured him. Not many folks around here appreciate the long game of fruit trees, too focused on immediate returns. As the afternoon progressed, Thomas eventually tired and returned to the house to rest. Noah and Daisy found themselves walking alone along the creek that bordered the property, the autumn sun casting golden light through the cottonwood trees. "Your father's knowledge is impressive," Noah commented. "He could write a book on the subject." "He practically has," Daisy replied. "He keeps extensive journals. It's been his passion since we moved here after Mother died." "I'm sorry about your mother. It was long ago. I was only 7. Daisy stooped to pick up a smooth stone from the creek bank. This place was her dream, actually. She was the one who wanted to come west, to build something of our own. Noah nodded understanding. "That's what brought many of us here, the chance to create something from nothing, answering to no one but ourselves and nature." "And you've certainly succeeded," Daisy observed. "The rocking R is known throughout the territory. It's grown beyond what I imagined," he admitted. "Sometimes I miss the earlier days when I knew every head of cattle personally and did all the work myself." "You don't work with the cattle anymore?" Daisy asked. Noah laughed. "Oh, I still get my hands dirty during roundup and calving season. Can't help myself. But with over 2,000 head now, I spend more time on ledgers than lassos." He glanced at her. "What about you? Has farming always been your calling?" Daisy skipped her stone across the creek, watching it bounce 4 times before sinking. I never really considered it a calling. It was simply life what needed doing. After mother died, father needed help, so I learned everything I could. By the time I was old enough to consider other paths, this place had become part of me. No thoughts of marriage, a home of your own. The question was casual, but his eyes were watchful. There haven't been many opportunities, she said honestly. Most young men around here left for the silver mines or went further west. Those who stayed were looking for wives who brought more to the marriage than knowledge of apple grafting and a farm heavily mortgaged. She smiled wryly. And now, with father's health, I couldn't leave anyway. They walked in silence for a moment before Noah spoke again. You undervalue yourself, Miss Ellis. Loyalty and hard work are worth more than a dowry or social connections. Perhaps to some, she acknowledged, but rarely to those making practical marriage decisions. I've never had much patience for the practical when it conflicts with the valuable. Noah stopped walking and turned to face her. Miss Ellis Daisy, if I may, I'd like to call on you again, not just to discuss orchards with your father, but to spend time with you. Daisy felt her pulse quicken. Mr. Russell, Noah, please. Noah. His name felt intimate on her tongue. I'm flattered, truly, but I'm also practical. We come from different worlds. You're building an empire. I'm trying to save a small farm from foreclosure. His eyes widened slightly. Is it that serious? Daisy immediately regretted her candor. We'll manage. We always do. Noah studied her face for a long moment. I respect your practicality, but I'm asking for the chance to know you better, not proposing a merger of assets. A smile tugged at his lips. Though I would point out that my empire, as you call it, was a leaky cabin and 30 head of cattle not so long ago. His humor broke the tension, and Daisy found herself smiling back. Very well, I'd welcome your visits if you truly wish to make them. I do. The simple declaration carried weight beyond its words. As they walked back toward the house, the setting sun casting their shadows long across the ground, Daisy felt a cautious hope rising within her, not just for her father's health or the farm's survival, but for possibilities she hadn't allowed herself to imagine before. The weeks that followed brought changes to the Ellis farm. Noah Russell became a regular visitor, arriving every Saturday with books, newspapers from Salt Lake City, and often small gifts, coffee, sugar, or dried fruits his cook had prepared. More importantly, he brought conversation and connection to their isolated lives. For Thomas, these visits became the highlight of the week. His health improved steadily, partly due to the herbal remedy Noah had brought, but also, Daisy suspected, because of the mental stimulation and sense of purpose the younger man provided. Noah took Thomas's orchard advice seriously, even bringing his ranch foreman once to consult about irrigation methods Thomas had developed. For Daisy, the visits awakened feelings she had long suppressed. Each Saturday, she found herself watching the road for the first sign of Noah's wagon, her heart lifting at his appearance. Their conversations ranged widely from books they'd both read to debates about territorial politics, from farming techniques to childhood memories. Noah spoke of his experiences in the war, serving with the Union cavalry as a young man, and his journey west afterward. Daisy shared stories of her mother and their early years on the homestead. As October turned to November, a new rhythm established itself. Noah would arrive by midday, spend the afternoon with Thomas discussing agriculture or business, then join Daisy for a walk while her father rested. These walks grew longer each week, their conversations deeper. On a crisp November afternoon, with the first dusting of snow on the distant mountains, they stood by the creek watching the last of the golden leaves drift from the cottonwoods. Winter's coming early this year, Noah observed, his breath visible in the cold air. The squirrels have been gathering like mad, Daisy agreed, and the bees sealed their hive weeks ago. Noah smiled at her observation. You notice things others miss. It's important living out here. The land and animals tell you what you need to know if you pay attention. She pulled her shawl tighter against a sudden breeze. Without comment, Noah removed his coat and placed it around her shoulders, the wool still warm from his body. The gesture was simple but intimate, and Daisy found herself struggling to maintain her composure as his hands lingered briefly on her shoulders. "Better?" he asked softly. "Yes, thank you, but now you'll be cold." "I've endured worse." He stood close beside her, their shoulders almost touching. "Daisy, there's something I've been wanting to ask you." The seriousness in his voice made her turn to face him. "What is it?" "The Founders' Day celebration is happening in Salt Lake City next weekend. There's a dinner and dance at the town hall." He met her eyes directly. "Would you consider attending with me?" Daisy's first instinct was to refuse. The memory of her humiliation at the Mercantile was still fresh, and the thought of facing those same society women as Noah Russell's companion was daunting. "I don't think that would be wise," she said carefully. "You must know how people would talk." "Let them talk," he replied. "I'm not asking for their approval. It's different for you," Daisy pointed out. "You're Noah Russell of the Rocking R. I'm just a farmer's daughter in A," she faltered. "In a dress that's seen honest work," he finished for her. "Yes, I remember, and my opinion hasn't changed." "Noah," she sighed. "Even if I wanted to go and part of me does, I don't have anything suitable to wear to such an event. I can't afford a new dress, and I won't embarrass you by appearing in my old one." He was quiet for a moment. "What if that concern were addressed? Would you consider it then?" "How would it be addressed?" she asked suspiciously. "Leave that to me." He held up a hand when she began to protest. "Not as charity, Daisy. Consider it a business matter." "A business matter? How is a dress business?" Noah's expression grew thoughtful. "Your father mentioned that you do exceptional needlework. He showed me that quilt you made last winter, the one with the star pattern." "Yes, but my sister is arriving from Boston next week. She's staying through Christmas and will need warm garments suitable for ranch life. I'd like to commission you to make them, a fair wage for skilled work." Daisy narrowed her eyes. "You're inventing work because you want me to have a dress." "I'm recognizing an opportunity that benefits us both," he corrected. "Elizabeth truly is coming, and she truly will need appropriate clothing. You truly are skilled, and you truly could use the income." His eyes twinkled. "The timing is merely fortunate." Despite herself, Daisy laughed. "You're persistent, Mr. Russell. When something matters, yes." He took her hand gently. "Say you'll come, please." The warmth of his hand around hers and the sincerity in his eyes broke down her resistance. "All right," she agreed softly. "If I can manage a suitable dress, I'll accompany you to the Founders' Day celebration." His smile was worth any potential embarrassment she might face. "Excellent. I'll bring Elizabeth to meet you this week to discuss her needs. And Daisy," his expression grew serious again. "Thank you for trusting me." As he helped her back toward the house, his coat still around her shoulders, Daisy wondered if she was being foolish. Opening her heart to Noah Russell meant risking pain if he eventually tired of his country diversion. Yet something in his steadfast attention over these weeks told her this was more than mere interest or novelty. 3 days later, Noah arrived with his sister Elizabeth, a lively woman in her mid-20s with the same dark hair and direct gaze as her brother. Unlike the society ladies of Salt Lake City, Elizabeth greeted Daisy with genuine warmth and no hint of condescension. "Noah's told me so much about you and your father," she said as they sat in the kitchen with cups of tea. "I feel I know you already." "All good things, I hope," Daisy replied, still somewhat reserved. "Excessively good," Elizabeth said with a playful glance at her brother. "I'd begun to think you had wings and a halo based on his descriptions." Noah cleared his throat, looking uncharacteristically embarrassed. "I simply mentioned that Miss Ellis is an accomplished farmer and seamstress." Elizabeth laughed. "Accomplished is the tamest word you used, dear brother." She turned back to Daisy. "In any case, I'm delighted to meet you and grateful for your help. Boston fashions are useless in Wyoming territory." They spent the next hour discussing Elizabeth's needs: riding skirts, warm blouses, a practical coat, and taking measurements. Noah had brought several bolts of fabric, far more expensive than Daisy would have chosen for herself. "This is too much," Daisy protested when she saw the fine wool and cotton. "Working clothes don't require such quality." "Perhaps not, but my sister does," Noah replied smoothly, "and I'm paying, so indulge me." When business was concluded and they'd agreed on a generous payment for Daisy's work, Elizabeth asked to see the orchard Thomas had mentioned. Noah accompanied his sister outside, giving Daisy a moment alone with Thomas, who had been watching the proceedings with interest. "That young man is sweet on you," her father said bluntly when the door closed. "Father," Daisy felt her cheeks warm. "I'm ill, not blind," Thomas replied, "and I approve. He's solid. Reminds me of myself at that age, hungry to build something meaningful." "It's not that simple," Daisy said, gathering the measuring tape and fabric samples. "We're from different worlds. Worlds change," her father said thoughtfully. "Look at this territory. 10 years ago it was wilderness. Now there's a railroad, towns, commerce." He reached for her hand. "Don't let fear of differences keep you from happiness, daughter." Before Daisy could respond, the door opened again as Noah and Elizabeth returned. "Your orchard is charming," Elizabeth told Thomas. "Noah's already planning something twice the size on our ranch based on your advice." As they said their goodbyes, Elizabeth hugged Daisy warmly. "I'll see you at the Founders' Day celebration," she said. "Noah's been talking of nothing else for days." With only 5 days until the event, Daisy threw herself into sewing. First, she cut and assembled a simple dress for herself from the finest fabric. Noah had brought a deep green wool that complemented her honey brown hair and brought out the flecks of gold in her hazel eyes. The style was modest but flattering, with a fitted bodice and fuller skirt than her everyday dresses. She added delicate embroidery at the collar and cuffs, working late into the night by lamplight. By Saturday afternoon, both her own dress and the first of Elizabeth's garments were complete. Thomas watched with pride as Daisy emerged from her bedroom in the new dress, her hair arranged in a style she remembered her mother wearing for special occasions. "You look like her," he said softly. "Your mother would be proud." A knock at the door announced Noah's arrival. When Daisy opened it, the expression on his face made every hour of work worthwhile. He stared at her for a long moment, seeming at a loss for words. "You look." He finally managed, "absolutely beautiful." "Thank you," she said, suddenly shy under his intense gaze. "The fabric makes all the difference." "No," he said firmly. "It's the woman wearing it." The journey to Salt Lake City passed quickly as Noah told her about the Founders' Day traditions and the people they would meet. His obvious excitement was contagious, and Daisy found her nervousness giving way to anticipation. "Elizabeth will meet us there," he explained. "She went in yesterday to stay with friends. She's looking forward to seeing you again." As they approached the town, Daisy's anxiety returned. The streets were crowded with well-dressed people heading toward the town hall, which was decorated with bunting and lanterns for the occasion. "Perhaps this wasn't such a good idea," she murmured as Noah helped her down from the wagon. He took her hand firmly in his. "You belong here as much as anyone," he said. "More than most, in fact. This territory was built by people willing to work and sacrifice, not by those who judge others based on the newness of their clothes." His confidence bolstered her courage, and she nodded. "All right, let's go in." The town hall had been transformed for the celebration. Lanterns hung from the rafters, casting a warm glow over tables laden with food. A small orchestra played in one corner, and dozens of people filled the space with conversation and laughter. As they entered, Daisy was acutely aware of heads turning in their direction. Noah Russell's arrival at any event would draw attention. Noah Russell with Daisy Ellis on his arm caused a sensation. She caught sight of Mrs. Hoffman and Mrs. Porter near the punch bowl, their expressions a mixture of shock and displeasure. "Ignore them," Noah whispered, sensing her tension. "They're not worth your concern." Elizabeth appeared from the crowd, resplendent in a blue silk dress. "You came," she exclaimed, embracing Daisy warmly. "And you look magnificent. That color is perfect for you." Before Daisy could respond, the mayor of Salt Lake City approached, a portly man with an impressive mustache. "Russell, good to see you." He shook Noah's hand vigorously before turning curious eyes to Daisy. "And who is your lovely companion, Mayor Jenkins? May I present Miss Daisy Ellis," Noah said formally. "Miss Ellis and her father run one of the finest orchards in the Eastern Valley." "Ellis." The mayor's eyebrows rose in recognition. "Thomas Ellis's daughter." I've heard good things about your apples, even young as the trees are. Thank you, sir, Daisy replied, surprised and pleased by his knowledge. We're hoping for a better yield next season. You must tell me more about your cultivation methods, the mayor continued. My own fruit trees are a constant disappointment. For the next several minutes, Daisy found herself engaged in a detailed discussion about fruit trees with the mayor and several other gentlemen who joined their circle. Noah stood beside her, occasionally adding a comment but mostly watching with evident pride as she spoke knowledgeably on her favorite subject. When the orchestra began playing a waltz, Noah turned to her. May I have this dance, Miss Ellis? Daisy hesitated. I should warn you, I haven't danced in years, not since school. I'll lead, he promised, guiding her toward the dance floor. As Noah's hand settled at her waist and he took her other hand in his, Daisy was intensely aware of his proximity. They began to move with the music, and she was surprised at how naturally they fell into rhythm together. You're doing wonderfully, Noah murmured as they circled the floor. You're a good leader, she replied, growing more confident with each step. As they danced, Daisy gradually became aware that they were the subject of considerable interest. Women whispered behind fans, and men cast speculative glances in their direction. She caught Mrs. Hoffman's pinched expression as they passed. Everyone's watching us, she said quietly. Let them, Noah replied, his eyes never leaving her face. They're watching because you outshine every woman here and they know it. Now you're being ridiculous, she laughed, though his words sent a warm glow through her. I'm being honest. His hand tightened slightly at her waist. Daisy, whatever he had been about to say was interrupted as the music ended and applause broke out around them. Noah reluctantly released her, though he kept her hand in his as they moved off the dance floor. The remainder of the evening passed in a blur of dancing, conversations, and delicious food. To Daisy's surprise, many people sought her out after learning she was Thomas Ellis's daughter. Her father's reputation as an innovative farmer extended further than she had realized, and several landowners expressed interest in his orchard techniques. Even more surprising was the number of women who approached her with genuine friendliness. Elizabeth introduced her to a circle of friends who welcomed her without reservation, and the wife of the territorial judge engaged her in a long discussion about preserving fruit. Your young man is quite the catch, the judge's wife commented with a knowing smile. Half the eligible women in the territory have set their caps for him, but he's never shown serious interest in anyone until now. Daisy felt her cheeks warm. Mr. Russell and I are friends. He's been very kind to my father and me during a difficult time. The older woman's eyes twinkled. My dear, a man doesn't look at a friend the way he looks at you, but don't worry, your secret is safe with me. As the evening drew to a close, Noah found her near the refreshment table. Ready to leave, he asked. It's getting late and we have a long drive back. Daisy nodded, suddenly aware of how tired she was. The excitement and nervous energy that had carried her through the evening were waning, leaving her pleasantly exhausted. They said their goodbyes to Elizabeth and the other guests, then stepped out into the cool night air. The streets of Salt Lake City were quiet now, most revelers having moved indoors as the temperature dropped. Noah helped her into the wagon and wrapped a warm blanket around her before climbing up beside her. As they left the town behind, Daisy leaned back against the seat, watching the stars overhead. Thank you, she said softly. For tonight, for everything? Noah glanced at her, his expression tender in the moonlight. You're the one who deserves thanks. You faced down your critics with grace and showed everyone what I already knew, that you're remarkable. Daisy shook her head. I'm not remarkable, I'm just— Stop, he interrupted gently. Accept that someone sees value in you that you might not see yourself. He hesitated, then added, My father used to say that a person's true worth is measured not by what they possess, but by what they overcome. By that measure, Daisy Ellis, you're the wealthiest woman in the territory. His words touched something deep within her. For years, she had defined herself by what she lacked: education, wealth, opportunity. Noah saw beyond those limitations to the person she was beneath them. Your father sounds like a wise man, she said. He was. Noah's voice held old grief. He died when I was 15, influenza. Left me and Elizabeth to fend for ourselves with an uncle who resented the burden. I'm sorry. Daisy understood loss all too well. That explains why you're so good with my father. You know what it means to lose a parent too soon. Noah nodded, and it's why I admire your dedication to him. Family is everything in the end. They fell into comfortable silence as the wagon rolled through the darkness. Daisy found herself fighting to stay awake, lulled by the motion and the warmth of the blanket. Eventually, her head drooped against Noah's shoulder, and she drifted into sleep. She awoke to the gentle pressure of his hand on hers. Daisy, we're home. Opening her eyes, she saw the familiar outline of the Ellis farmhouse against the star-filled sky. I'm sorry, she murmured, embarrassed. I didn't mean to fall asleep. No need for apologies. He smiled as he helped her down from the wagon. You've had a long day. They walked to the door, and Daisy expected him to say goodnight. Instead, he took both her hands in his expression serious in the moonlight. Daisy, I need to say something, and I'd appreciate it if you'd hear me out before responding. Her heart quickened at his tone. All right. These past weeks, getting to know you and your father, have been the happiest I can remember. His thumbs traced small circles on the backs of her hands. I came here initially out of concern and curiosity. I stayed because I found something I wasn't even looking for. Noah, she began, but he shook his head. Please, let me finish. He took a deep breath. I know our circumstances are different. I know there are practical considerations, your father's health, the farm, the differences in our positions, but none of that matters to me. What matters is that when I'm with you, I feel more myself than I ever have before. Daisy stood perfectly still, hardly daring to breathe as he continued. I'm not asking for any declarations tonight, he said softly. I just want you to know that my intentions are honorable and my feelings are genuine. Whatever happens between us will be your choice, made in your own time. In the silence that followed, Daisy found her voice. Noah, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything now, he assured her. Just know that I'll be here, whether you need a friend, a business partner, or... He left the last possibility unspoken. Impulsively, Daisy rose on her tiptoes and pressed a gentle kiss to his cheek. Thank you for tonight, she whispered. For everything. His eyes darkened with emotion, and for a moment she thought he might kiss her properly. Instead, he lifted her hand to his lips. Good night, Daisy Ellis, he said. Sweet dreams. As she watched him drive away, Daisy touched her fingers to the spot where his lips had pressed against her skin. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a future different from the one she had resigned herself to, a future filled with possibility and, perhaps, love. The days following the Founders' Day celebration brought changes to Daisy's life that she could never have anticipated. Word of her appearance with Noah Russell spread quickly through the surrounding farms and ranches. Women who had previously ignored her at church or in town now sought her acquaintance. Merchants who had been indifferent became attentive when she shopped for supplies. Noah continued his regular visits, though now he often brought Elizabeth as well. The siblings became fixtures at the Ellis farm, with Elizabeth helping Daisy with household tasks while Noah assisted Thomas with winter preparations for the orchard. What had begun as formal visits evolved into comfortable familiarity, the four of them sharing meals and conversation as easily as if they'd known each other for years. As November turned to December, Thomas's health improved steadily. The herbal remedy Noah had brought worked better than any medicine the doctor had prescribed, and the mental stimulation of Noah's visits seemed to revitalize the older man. He began venturing out to the orchard again, bundled against the cold, to supervise the winter pruning Noah insisted on helping with. Your father's stronger every time I see him, Noah observed one afternoon as he and Daisy walked along the snow-dusted creek. He managed the entire west section of the orchard today without resting. It's remarkable, Daisy agreed. A month ago I feared he wouldn't see spring. Now he's making plans for expanding the orchard next year. About those plans. Noah hesitated. I've been thinking. Your father's knowledge and my land could be a powerful combination. The eastern section of the Rocking R has the perfect elevation and soil for fruit trees. Daisy glanced at him curiously. Are you proposing a business arrangement, in a manner of speaking? Noah stopped walking and turned to face her. Daisy, I want to be clear about my intentions. I care deeply for you and your father. What I'm suggesting would benefit us all, but it's not the only reason I'm here. Snow began to fall lightly around them, the delicate flakes catching in Daisy's hair and on her woolen shawl. Noah reached out to brush a snowflake from her cheek, his touch lingering. I know, she said softly. You've made your feelings clear, and yours. His eyes searched hers. I've tried to be patient, to give you time, but I find myself growing less patient by the day. Daisy took a deep breath, gathering her courage. My feelings have grown with each visit, each conversation. I care for you, Noah, more than I thought possible in so short a time. His expression lightened. But I still have concerns, practical ones. She gestured toward the farm. This place is my responsibility. My father's health may be improving, but he's not young. I can't abandon him or the work he's put his life into. I would never ask you to, Noah assured her. Whatever relationship develops between us, your father will always be welcome and respected. As for the farm, he looked thoughtful. There are many possibilities. We could maintain both properties, hire a manager for one, join the operations. You've given this considerable thought, Daisy observed. I've thought of little else, he admitted. Daisy, I'm not asking for answers today. I'm asking for your openness to possibilities. A smile curved her lips. I think I've demonstrated that already. 2 months ago, I would never have imagined attending the Founders' Day celebration on your arm, yet there I was. Indeed you were, he agreed, his own smile warming his features. The most beautiful woman in the room, despite what certain ladies might have thought. They were actually quite civil, Daisy noted. Even Mrs. Hoffman asked about father's health. Self-interest, Noah said wryly. They've realized you're someone worth knowing, because of you. No, his tone was firm, because of who you are. I merely provided the opportunity for them to see what I recognized immediately. The snow fell more heavily now, creating a hushed intimacy around them. Noah took a step closer, his eyes never leaving hers. Daisy Ellis, he said softly, may I kiss you? Her heart raced at the question, but she didn't hesitate. Yes, she whispered. Noah's hands cradled her face with infinite gentleness as he lowered his mouth to hers. The kiss was tender, almost reverent, his lips warm despite the cold air. Daisy's hands found their way to his shoulders, steadying herself against the rush of emotion. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, Noah rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that since the day I met you, he confessed. In the mercantile, Daisy laughed softly. When I was mortified and angry, even then, he confirmed. Perhaps especially then, you had such dignity, such strength. I knew immediately you were extraordinary. They stood together in the falling snow, reluctant to break the moment. Finally, practical concerns intervened. We should get back, Daisy said reluctantly. Father will worry, and you shouldn't drive in heavy snow. Noah nodded agreement, though he kept her hand firmly in his as they walked back to the farmhouse. As they approached, Daisy saw her father watching from the window, his expression a mixture of satisfaction and concern. He'll have questions, she murmured. Good, Noah replied. I have answers. Inside, Thomas Ellis sat by the fire, a blanket across his knees despite the warm room. His sharp eyes took in their snow-dusted clothing and clasped hands, but he made no comment beyond offering Noah coffee before his drive home. As Daisy busied herself at the stove, she was acutely aware of the men's conversation, which had taken an unexpected turn. I've been meaning to ask you, Thomas said to Noah, about your long-term plans for that eastern pasture, the one by the creek. Interesting you should mention it, Noah replied. I've been considering converting some of it to orchard land, based on your advice about soil and elevation. Good land for it, Thomas agreed, but a considerable undertaking. You'd need someone with experience to oversee it. I was hoping you might advise me on that very matter, Noah said carefully, both the planning and potentially the supervision. Daisy turned from the stove, surprised by the direction of their conversation. Her father caught her eye and smiled slightly before returning his attention to Noah. That would depend on several factors, Thomas said. Including my daughter's thoughts on the matter, Noah nodded understanding. Of course, any arrangements would need to accommodate everyone's needs and wishes. The conversation moved to technical details of orchard planning, but Daisy understood the undercurrent. Her father was giving his tacit approval to whatever relationship might develop between her and Noah, while also ensuring his own place in any future plans. By the time Noah left, the snow had accumulated several inches, and Daisy worried about his journey back to the rocking R. "Stay on the main road," she cautioned as he prepared to leave, "and send word when you arrive safely." "I will," he promised, his eyes warm with affection, "though it's not the first snowstorm I've driven through and the ranch is only an hour away in good conditions." "Still," she insisted, "I'll worry until I know you're home." Noah's expression softened at her concern. "I'll send one of the hands first thing tomorrow," he assured her. He glanced toward the house where Thomas had discreetly withdrawn to give them privacy. "Daisy, I meant what I said earlier." "About us, about possibilities." "I know," she replied quietly. "I'm beginning to believe in those possibilities myself." He kissed her once more, a gentle promise before climbing into his wagon and setting off through the falling snow. Daisy watched until the vehicle disappeared from sight, then hurried back to the warmth of the house. Her father looked up from his chair by the fire. "That young man is in love with you," he stated matter-of-factly. "Father." Daisy felt her cheeks warm despite the chill she'd brought in from outside. "It's not a criticism," Thomas clarified. "Quite the opposite. Noah Russell is exactly the kind of man I'd choose for you if the choosing were mine." He studied her face. "But it's not my choice, it's yours." "And I think you've already made it, haven't you?" Daisy sank into the chair opposite him, overwhelmed by the events of the day. "I'm not sure what I've chosen, exactly. Everything is happening so quickly." "Love often does," her father said with a distant smile, perhaps remembering his own courtship. "But the important question is, do you love him?" The directness of the question demanded an honest answer. "I think I do," Daisy admitted softly, "but there are so many practical considerations." Thomas waved away her concerns. "Practicalities can be sorted out. Love is rarer and more precious." He leaned forward, his eyes serious. "Daisy, I've watched you sacrifice your youth and prospects to care for this farm and for me. It's been my greatest regret that my illness has limited your chances for happiness." "Father, no," she began, but he held up a hand. "Let me finish. You've been everything a father could ask for in a daughter and more. Now life has offered you a chance at joy of your own. Don't let practical concerns stand in your way." His expression softened. "Noah is a good man. He respects you, values your mind as well as your heart, and not insignificantly, he sees the worth in this old farmer and his dreams." Daisy felt tears prick at her eyes. "I won't leave you or the farm." "No one's asking you to," Thomas pointed out. "But change is coming one way or another. Best to embrace it on your terms with someone who cares for you deeply." He reached for her hand. "Your mother would want this for you, so do I." The next morning dawned clear and cold, the world transformed by several inches of pristine snow. Daisy was checking on the livestock when she heard the sound of approaching hoofbeats. Looking up, she saw a rider from the rocking R approaching, recognizable by the distinctive brand on his saddlebag. "Miss Ellis," the young cowhand called as he dismounted. "Mr. Russell asked me to deliver this and to tell you he arrived home safely last night." He handed her a small package wrapped in brown paper. "Thank you," Daisy replied, surprised. "Would you like some coffee before you head back?" "You must be cold." The young man accepted gratefully, and Daisy led him to the house. As he warmed himself by the fire, she unwrapped the package. Inside was a small wooden box carved with an intricate pattern of apple blossoms. Opening it, she found a folded note atop a delicate silver chain with a small pearl pendant. The note reads simply, "This was my mother's. She always said it should go to the woman who captured my heart. I can think of no one more worthy to wear it. With deepest affection, Noah." Daisy's hands trembled as she lifted the necklace. It was beautiful in its simplicity, a perfect pearl nestled in a silver setting that caught the morning light. "Is that from Noah?" her father asked, entering the room. "Yes," she said quietly, showing him the gift. It was his mother's. Thomas nodded, understanding. A family heirloom, significant. After the ranch hand departed with her thanks and a message of gratitude for Noah, Daisy stood before her small mirror and fastened the necklace around her throat. The pearl rested perfectly at the hollow of her neck, as if it had been made for her. Throughout the day, as she completed her chores, her fingers often strayed to the necklace, its presence a tangible reminder of Noah's feelings and intentions. By evening, she had made a decision. 2 days later, when Noah arrived for his regular visit, Daisy met him in the yard, the pearl necklace visible against the collar of her dress. "You're wearing it," he observed, his expression brightening. "It suits you perfectly." "Thank you for such a meaningful gift," she replied. "I've been thinking about what you said, about possibilities." Noah's attention sharpened. And I'd like to explore them with you." She took a deep breath. "I care for you, Noah, deeply. I'm not certain what the future holds for us, but I want to find out." The joy that spread across his face was answer enough, even before he gathered her into his arms and kissed her with a passion that left no doubt of his feelings. "You've made me the happiest man in Wyoming territory," he said when they finally parted. "We still have much to discuss," Daisy reminded him. "Practical matters, we have time," Noah assured her. All the time we need. As Christmas approached, the relationship between Daisy and Noah deepened. He visited the Ellis farm almost daily now, often bringing Elizabeth, who had become a dear friend to Daisy. Together, the four of them decorated the farmhouse with pine boughs and red ribbons, creating a festive atmosphere despite the modest surroundings. On Christmas Eve, Noah and Elizabeth arrived with their arms full of packages and a small fir tree strapped to their wagon. "We thought you might enjoy a proper Christmas tree," Elizabeth explained as Noah set up the fragrant evergreen in the corner of the main room. "It's wonderful," Daisy exclaimed, touching the soft needles. "We haven't had a tree since Mother died. She always insisted on one, but afterward, Father and I—" She trailed off, remembering those difficult early years. "Then it's time to revive the tradition," Noah said firmly. From a box, he produced simple ornaments, wooden stars, painted pine cones, and red berries strung on thread. "These were our mother's. Elizabeth and I have kept them all these years. Are you sure you want to share them?" Daisy asked, touched by the gesture. "Absolutely," Elizabeth replied. Christmas should be about family, old and new. The meaning behind her words wasn't lost on Daisy or Thomas. As they decorated the tree together, singing carols and sharing stories of Christmases past, Daisy felt a sense of rightness, of pieces falling into place. After a festive dinner of roast venison and Elizabeth's cranberry pudding, they exchanged gifts around the fire. Thomas received books on horticulture from Noah and a warm woolen scarf Daisy had knitted. Elizabeth was delighted with the riding skirt and jacket Daisy had made for her. When it was Daisy's turn, Noah handed her a small package. "This is just part of your gift," he explained. "The rest will have to wait until tomorrow." Inside the package was a beautiful leather-bound journal. "For recording your orchard observations," Noah said. "Every successful grower needs to keep detailed notes." "It's perfect," Daisy said sincerely. "Thank you." Her gift to Noah was a hand-knitted sweater in deep blue wool, carefully crafted during the long evenings after he had left. "This must have taken weeks," he said, running his hand over the intricate pattern. "It gave me something to do besides worry about you riding home in the cold," she replied with a smile. As the evening drew to a close, Elizabeth announced she was tired and retired to the small guest room they had prepared for her. Thomas soon followed, leaving Daisy and Noah alone by the fire. "This has been the most wonderful Christmas I can remember," Daisy said, leaning comfortably against Noah's shoulder as they sat side by side on the small sofa. "Mine too," he agreed, his arm around her, "and I hope tomorrow will be even better." "What's happening tomorrow?" she asked curiously. "You mentioned the rest of my gift," Noah smiled mysteriously. "You'll see. For now, just know that I've never been happier than these past months with you." He turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "Daisy, when I first saw you in that mercantile, standing tall despite those women's cruelty, I admired your courage. As I've come to know you, that admiration has grown into the deepest love I've ever known." Daisy's heart raced at his declaration. "Noah, I love you," he said simply. "I don't need more time to be certain of that. I know we still have details to work out, plans to make, but the most important thing, how I feel about you, is settled in my mind and heart." Tears welled in Daisy's eyes. "I love you too," she whispered. "I think I have almost from the beginning, though I tried to be practical about it." Noah laughed softly. "My practical, sensible Daisy, one of the many reasons I love you." He kissed her gently, then more deeply, his hands cradling her face as if she were the most precious thing in the world. When they finally parted, he reluctantly stood. "I should go, we have a big day tomorrow." "Will you tell me nothing about this mysterious gift?" Daisy pleaded. "Only that you should be ready to ride out to the rocking R mid-morning," he replied with a smile. "Elizabeth will stay with your father, who, by the way, is already aware of our plans." "You've discussed this with father?" Daisy was surprised. Of course, some matters require a father's input. With a final kiss, Noah bid her goodnight, leaving Daisy to wonder what Christmas Day would bring. She slept little that night, her mind filled with possibilities and hopes. By the time dawn broke, clear and cold, she had already been up for hours, preparing breakfast and ensuring the livestock were fed and watered. When Noah arrived at mid-morning with a comfortable sleigh to carry them through the snow, Daisy was waiting, dressed in her best woolen dress, and the warm coat Elizabeth had insisted on giving her as an early Christmas gift the week before. "You look beautiful," Noah said as he helped her into the sleigh and tucked warm buffalo robes around her. "You still won't tell me where we're going?" she asked as they set off, the bells on the horse's harness jingling merrily in the crisp air. "To the rocking R," he replied, though his smile suggested there was more to it. "I want to show you something." The journey to Noah's ranch took almost an hour, giving Daisy time to appreciate the winter landscape. The snow-covered hills and valleys sparkled in the sunshine, and the sky above was a perfect, clear blue. As they crested a rise, the rocking R came into view. Daisy had never visited Noah's home before, and she was impressed by the scale of it. A large main house of hewn logs stood proudly on a hill, with several outbuildings, barns, and corrals spread out below it. Smoke rose from the chimney, and a few ranch hands could be seen tending to livestock. "It's beautiful," she said sincerely. "Thank you." Noah's voice held pride and something else, anticipation, perhaps. "I built the house myself with help from my men, started with just 2 rooms and expanded as the ranch grew." He guided the sleigh not to the main house, as Daisy expected, but to a smaller structure about a quarter-mile away, near a creek that cut through the property. It was a charming cabin, newly built by the look of the fresh-cut logs, with a wide porch and large windows. "Whose home is this?" Daisy asked as they came to a stop. "No one's yet," Noah replied, helping her down from the sleigh. "That's part of why we're here." Curious, Daisy allowed him to lead her to the cabin door. Inside, she found a single large room, warm from a fire already burning in a stone fireplace. The furnishings were simple but beautiful: a table and chairs, a comfortable sofa, and bookshelves built into the walls. Large windows offered views of the creek and distant mountains. "Noah, it's lovely," she said, turning in a slow circle to take it all in. "When did you build this?" "I started it the day after the Founders' Day celebration," he admitted. "I wanted a place that could be ours if you chose to accept my proposal." Daisy's breath caught as Noah took her hands in his. "Proposal?" "Daisy Ellis," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "These past months have shown me what truly matters in life, not wealth or status or others' opinions, but love, partnership, and shared purpose." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "You've brought joy into my world that I never expected to find. Will you marry me, share your life with mine, and make this cabin our first home together?" Opening the box, he revealed a ring, a perfect diamond flanked by small pearls, set in gold. It was elegant but not ostentatious, exactly what Daisy would have chosen herself. For a moment she could only stare at the ring, overwhelmed by emotion. Then she looked up into Noah's hopeful eyes and found her voice. "Yes," she said, her heart overflowing with happiness. Yes, I will marry you. Noah's face lit with joy as he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fits, he observed with satisfaction. How did you know my size? She asked, admiring the way the stones caught the light. Elizabeth, he admitted with a grin. She borrowed one of your gloves on the pretense of using it as a pattern. Daisy laughed, not at all surprised by the subterfuge. Sneaky, both of you. There's more, Noah said, taking her hand and leading her toward a door at the back of the cabin. This is the rest of your Christmas gift. Opening the door, he revealed a second room, smaller than the first but equally warm and welcoming. What captured Daisy's attention, however, was the large table in the center, covered with papers, books, and what appeared to be architectural drawings. What is this? She asked, approaching the table. Plans, Noah explained, standing beside her. For our future, for combining our dreams. Spreading out the papers, he showed her detailed drawings of a much expanded orchard, covering acres of the eastern portion of the rocking R. There were plans for irrigation systems based on Thomas's designs, a nursery for cultivating new varieties, and even a small processing facility for preserving and shipping fruit. You've thought of everything, Daisy said, amazed by the scope of the plans. Not just me, Noah corrected. Your father helped. He's been consulting with me for weeks whenever you were busy with chores. He pointed to notes in Thomas's distinctive handwriting on several of the documents. This will be a true partnership, my land, your expertise. Daisy felt tears welling in her eyes. And father. Where does he fit? Wherever he chooses, Noah assured her. This cabin has a third room not yet finished that could be his, or he could stay in the main house with us after we marry, or maintain the Ellis farm. It's entirely his decision and yours. You've considered every possibility, she marveled. I wanted you to know that loving me doesn't mean sacrificing anything, not your father, not your work, not your dreams. Noah's expression was earnest. I'm not asking you to become someone else, Daisy. I fell in love with exactly who you are. Overcome with emotion, Daisy threw her arms around him. I love you, she whispered against his chest. So much. He held her close, his cheek resting against her hair. Does that mean you approve of the plans? They're perfect, she assured him. Just like this cabin, just like the ring, just like this entire day. There's one more thing, Noah said, a hint of mischief in his voice. He reached for a covered basket on a nearby shelf and removed the cloth, revealing a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. I thought we might celebrate our engagement. As he poured the sparkling wine, Daisy took in the cozy room with its large windows overlooking the snow-covered landscape. When could we move in? She asked. As soon as you like. The main room is finished, as you can see. This room needs a bit more work and the bedroom isn't fully furnished yet. He handed her a glass. I thought you might want to choose some things yourself, make it truly ours. The consideration behind every aspect of his plans touched her deeply. This wasn't a man making grand gestures for show. This was someone who had thought carefully about her needs and wishes. To us, Noah said, raising his glass, and to all the possibilities ahead. To us, Daisy echoed, clinking her glass against his, and to the finest man I've ever known. Noah's smile warmed her heart as they sipped the champagne. Setting his glass down, he drew her into his arms. I promise to spend the rest of my life making you happy, he murmured before kissing her with a tenderness that brought tears to her eyes. In that moment, standing in the cabin Noah had built with their future in mind, Daisy felt truly blessed. From the humiliation of that day in the mercantile had come the greatest joy she could imagine, a love born of respect and understanding, a partnership of equals despite their different circumstances. As snow began to fall gently outside the windows, Daisy and Noah stood together, planning their future amid the blueprints and proposals that represented their shared dreams. The old dress that had once marked her as an object of ridicule was now just a memory, replaced by the knowledge that Noah had seen her true worth from the beginning. When shall we marry? Noah asked as they sat together by the fire discussing their plans. Spring, Daisy suggested. After the last frost, when the apple blossoms are in bloom, it seems fitting. Perfect, he agreed. That gives us time to prepare properly, and for me to finish this cabin exactly as we want it. They spent the remainder of Christmas Day exploring the rocking R and finalizing their plans. Noah showed Daisy the main house, the barns, and the land he had set aside for their orchard. By the time they returned to the Ellis farm that evening, they had sketched out the next year of their lives together. Thomas and Elizabeth were waiting with supper prepared and knowing smiles. One look at Daisy's radiant face and the ring on her finger told them everything they needed to know. She said yes then, Thomas said, his eyes twinkling as he embraced his daughter. Was there ever any doubt? Elizabeth laughed, hugging her brother. Over the coming months, news of their engagement spread throughout the territory. The same society women who had once mocked Daisy's dress now called on her with congratulations and invitations. Mrs. Hoffman even went so far as to offer her home for the wedding reception, though Daisy politely declined, preferring a simpler celebration at the Rocking R. Winter gave way to spring, the snow melting to reveal the first green shoots of new life. The cabin was completed according to their specifications, with a comfortable bedroom, a study for Thomas, and even a small conservatory where Daisy could start seedlings for the orchard. Thomas Ellis, growing stronger with each passing day, divided his time between his own farm and the Rocking R, supervising the preparation of land for what would become the largest orchard in the territory. As April turned to May and the apple trees burst into fragrant bloom, final preparations for the wedding were made. Daisy, with Elizabeth's help, created a simple but elegant gown of ivory silk, embroidered with tiny apple blossoms along the hem and sleeves. On the morning of the wedding, as Elizabeth helped her dress, Daisy found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this day. "A year ago, I could never have imagined this," she said, watching in the mirror as Elizabeth arranged her hair with sprigs of fresh apple blossoms. "I was focused on survival, on keeping the farm going, on caring for Father. And now," Elizabeth asked, placing the final flower, "now I understand that surviving isn't the same as living." Daisy touched the pearl necklace Noah had given her, which complemented her engagement ring perfectly. "Noah taught me that. You taught him a few things too," Elizabeth observed. "My brother was successful before he met you, but he wasn't truly happy. He is now." When Daisy emerged from the house on her father's arm, the sight that greeted her took her breath away. The entire Rocking R had been transformed for the occasion. White ribbons and apple blossoms decorated the path leading to the orchard, where rows of chairs had been arranged beneath the flowering trees. Noah stood waiting at an arch woven with blossoms and greenery, his expression one of awe as he watched her approach. Friends from throughout the territory had gathered to witness their union ranchers and farmers, merchants from Salt Lake City, even the territorial governor and his wife. But Daisy saw only Noah, handsome in his new black suit, his eyes never leaving hers as she walked toward him. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising partnership, respect, and enduring love. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Noah kissed her with such tenderness that several guests were seen wiping away tears. The celebration that followed lasted well into the evening, with music, dancing, and a feast that showcased the best of what both ranching and farming had to offer. As dusk fell, lanterns were lit among the apple trees, creating a magical setting for their first dance as husband and wife. "Happy?" Noah asked as they moved together beneath the blossoming branches. "Beyond words," Daisy replied, her heart full to bursting. "Everything is perfect, including your dress," he noted with a smile, admiring the gown she had made, "though you would have been the finest woman here in sackcloth." Daisy laughed, remembering their first meeting. "You've been saying that since the day we met, and I'll keep saying it," he promised, "for the rest of our lives." As they danced beneath the stars, surrounded by friends and family, the apple blossoms drifting down around them like fragrant snow, Daisy knew she had found not just love, but a true partnership of heart, mind, and purpose. The mocking voices of that day in the mercantile were long forgotten, replaced by the certainty that Noah had seen her true worth from the beginning, not in the clothes she wore or the status she held, but in the strength of her character and the love in her heart. In the years that followed, the Ellis-Russell orchard became famous throughout the West for its innovative techniques and exceptional fruit. Thomas Ellis lived to see his grandchildren born, and his dreams for the orchard exceeded beyond his wildest expectations. The old Ellis farm was maintained as an experimental nursery, where new varieties were developed and tested. Noah and Daisy's partnership proved as fruitful in business as it was in love. They raised 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter in the cabin by the creek, eventually expanding it as their family grew. The main house of the Rocking R became a gathering place for agricultural experts from across the country, eager to learn from their success. And if visitors to Salt Lake City sometimes heard the story of how Noah Russell had defended a farmer's daughter in a dress that had seen better days, declaring her the finest woman present, well, neither Noah nor Daisy minded. For that moment of recognition had blossomed, like their beloved apple trees, into a life of extraordinary richness and beauty, a testament to seeing beyond appearances to the true worth that lies within.